Most people hear the word solitude and instantly think of loneliness, but those two things are worlds apart. Loneliness is the pain of being disconnected, while solitude is the power of being deeply connected to yourself. If you want to find peace, if you want to feel grounded no matter what chaos is happening around you, you have to learn to embrace solitude as a skill, not fear it as an empty space. In today's world, we are conditioned to believe that our value comes from constant connection. Text messages, likes, comments, calls, meetings. The moment we're alone, the discomfort kicks in. We reach for our phone, we scroll, we distract ourselves from the quiet. But here's the truth. That quiet is exactly where the answers are. When you allow yourself to sit in solitude without the need to fill every second with noise, something powerful happens. You start to hear yourself. You start to realize that there's a voice inside you that's been drowned out by the opinions, demands, and judgments of others. And that voice, it's the key to your peace. Finding peace in solitude is not about shutting out the world forever. It's about learning how to return to yourself so you can face the world with clarity. Think of it like recharging a battery. Your mind and your emotions need that time to reset, but most of us run on empty because we're never truly alone with ourselves. We confuse busyness with meaning. But what we're really doing is avoiding the discomfort of facing our own thoughts. The irony is, those thoughts, the raw, unfiltered ones, are exactly what will lead you to a life that feels more authentic. Here's where the shift starts. Reframe solitude as strength. When you choose to spend time alone intentionally, you're telling yourself, I am enough. You're showing that your own company is valuable. That's a level of self-respect most people never tap into. If you want peace, you have to build that respect. This doesn't happen overnight. At first, it may feel uncomfortable. You might notice feelings you've been ignoring. You might get restless. That's okay. That's part of the process. Your mind is detoxing from constant stimulation, and like any detox, it's going to feel strange before it feels good. Once you've reframed solitude, the next step is mastering the art of self-connection. This means asking yourself real questions without rushing to find an answer. What do I really want? What am I avoiding? What matters to me right now? You're not interrogating yourself, you're listening. This is why solitude is so powerful. There's no one else to perform for, no one else to convince. You're just you, in the rawest form, and when you can accept that version of yourself, peace becomes the natural byproduct. To make solitude a consistent source of peace, you have to create a ritual around it. That could be something as simple as taking a 20-minute walk every morning without your phone, sitting in a park and journaling, or meditating in silence before bed. The activity itself doesn't matter as much as the intention behind it. This is your time to be with yourself. Ritualizing it removes the guilt or weirdness because it becomes part of your life, not something you do only when you're feeling low. Now, here's a hard truth. Your solitude won't feel peaceful if you're still plugged into constant digital noise. Every ping, every notification, every endless scroll is a form of mental clutter. You can't find calm in your mind if you keep flooding it with everyone else's thoughts. That's why you need boundaries. Turn off the notifications during your alone time. Let people wait. The world will survive without your instant reply. More importantly, you'll start to realize that your worth is not dependent on your availability. Finally, understand that solitude is not just for rest. It's for growth. This is your chance to learn something new, brainstorm ideas, visualize your future, or simply sit in gratitude for what you already have. When you start seeing solitude as a space for creation instead of emptiness, your relationship with it transforms. You stop fearing it. You start craving it. And in that craving, in that intentional choice to be alone, you'll find the peace you've been searching for. Not because the world quieted down, but because you did. Peace in solitude doesn't happen by accident. It's something you create with intention. We live in a culture that rewards speed, noise, and constant engagement. The second there's silence, we feel uneasy because we've trained our minds to expect stimulation every waking moment. But solitude is the exact opposite of that. It's an intentional slowing down, a conscious choice to create a gap between the demands of life and your inner world. And when you learn how to honor that gap, you begin to realize that peace isn't about escaping your problems. It's about creating the mental space to see them differently. The first step is to change your relationship with being alone. Most people think solitude means isolation, but that's not true. Isolation is when you're cut off and disconnected in a way that harms you. Solitude is when you're connected to yourself in a way that strengthens you. The reason solitude feels uncomfortable at first is because it forces you to sit with your own thoughts without distraction. You hear your fears, you hear your doubts, you notice the self-talk you've been ignoring. And while that can feel confronting, it's also the doorway to real inner peace, because you can't heal what you refuse to acknowledge. One of the most powerful things about solitude is that it helps you recalibrate your emotional energy. Think about it. When you're constantly surrounded by people, conversations, and social media updates, you're absorbing an incredible amount of external noise. Even if you don't realize it, you're carrying other people's opinions, moods, and expectations in your head. That leaves very little room for your own voice. Solitude gives you that room back. It allows you to filter out the noise and reconnect with what you truly believe, feel, and want. And the more you practice it, the more you'll notice that your sense of peace no longer depends on whether the outside world is calm. It comes from within. Creating peace in solitude also means being intentional about how you spend that time. Simply sitting alone but scrolling on your phone isn't solitude. That's just distraction in disguise. True solitude happens when you allow yourself to be fully present in the moment without reaching for something to fill the silence. You might sit quietly and breathe, go for a slow walk in nature, write down your thoughts, or even just look out a window and notice the world without reacting to it. It's not about doing nothing, it's about doing something that connects you more deeply to yourself. But here's the catch. Your brain will resist at first. It's used to dopamine hits from constant activity and notifications. So the first few times you practice solitude, you might feel restless, bored, or even anxious. That's normal. It's not a sign that you're doing it wrong. It's a sign that you're detoxing from overstimulation. If you stick with it, you'll start to notice a shift. The quiet that once felt uncomfortable will begin to feel nourishing. The moments alone will feel less like an absence and more like a gift. And that's when you know you're starting to find peace. A key part of this process is setting boundaries with your digital world. You cannot find real solitude if you're still tethered to the constant flow of updates, messages, and alerts. It's like trying to meditate in the middle of a crowded street. You're never going to get stillness if you're constantly interrupted. So give yourself permission to disconnect. Put your phone on airplane mode for an hour. Leave it in another room when you're journaling or reading. Train your brain to understand that it doesn't need to be on call 24/7. Over time, solitude becomes a form of self-trust. You start to realize you don't need constant input from others to feel validated. You stop chasing approval because you've built a deeper approval from within. And when you're rooted in that self-trust, your peace stops being fragile. It's no longer something that can be stolen by an argument, a bad day, or someone else's mood. It's yours. You've built it from the inside out. And that's the kind of peace that solitude, when embraced with intention, can give you for life. One of the biggest misconceptions about finding peace in solitude is that it means shutting the world out. That's not true at all. Solitude isn't about running away. It's about coming home to yourself. It's about creating a space where your mind and heart can breathe without the constant push and pull of other people's expectations. In that space, you're not defined by your job, your relationships, or your to-do list. You're simply you. And the beauty of solitude is that it reminds you that being you, without any external labels or validation, is enough. The challenge most people face is that they've never been taught how to be alone without feeling lonely. From a young age, we're surrounded by people, family, school, friends, colleagues, and our identities often get wrapped up in how others see us. We're taught to measure our worth by how connected, busy, and involved we are. So when life gives us a pause, it can feel uncomfortable, even scary. We reach for distractions to fill the emptiness, not realizing that what we're really doing is avoiding the most important conversation we could have, the one with ourselves. If you want to find peace in solitude, you have to lean into that conversation. That means asking yourself questions you might not have the answers to yet. What am I feeling right now? What's weighing on me? What do I need more of in my life? These aren't questions to rush through. They're questions to sit with. Solitude gives you the time and mental clarity to explore them honestly. The answers won't always come quickly, but the act of asking begins to unlock something inside you. Another important truth is that peace in solitude doesn't come from what's happening around you. It comes from how you choose to engage with yourself during that time. You can be alone in a quiet room and still feel restless if your mind is racing with worry. That's why cultivating peace is an intentional practice. You might start your solitude with deep breathing to calm your nervous system, or by writing down the thoughts that are cluttering your head. Sometimes the simple act of getting your thoughts on paper can create a surprising amount of relief. Other times, you may find that physical movement, like stretching or walking, helps you process what you're feeling. The point is to use solitude as a tool, not just a backdrop. The more time you spend in true solitude, the more you begin to notice patterns about yourself. You start to see which thoughts repeat, which emotions linger, and which dreams keep resurfacing no matter how much life tries to distract you. This awareness is powerful because it gives you the chance to make changes. Maybe you realize you've been neglecting something important to you. Maybe you discover that some of the stress you carry isn't even yours. It belongs to other people's problems and opinions that you've been holding on to. Solitude gives you the clarity to sort through all of that and decide what stays and what goes. Digital disconnection plays a massive role in this process. You can't truly experience the benefits of solitude if you're constantly checking for updates or notifications. Even a quick glance at your phone pulls your mind out of the present moment and back into the noise of the outside world. When you commit to being fully present, no screens, no endless scrolling, you give your brain a break from the constant flood of information. That mental stillness is where peace begins to grow. Over time, solitude stops feeling like an empty space you need to escape from and starts feeling like a sanctuary you get to return to. You begin to crave it because it's where you feel most grounded. It becomes the place where you recharge, think clearly, and reconnect with what matters most. And the best part? Once you've built that peace inside yourself, it doesn't vanish the moment you step back into the world. It stays with you because you've learned that real peace doesn't come from the absence of noise. It comes from the presence of self-awareness. And solitude, when embraced fully, is the most powerful way to find it. Finding peace in solitude is like learning a new language. At first, it feels foreign, but the more you practice, the more natural it becomes. In a world where we are constantly surrounded by stimulation, emails, social media, conversations, traffic, it's no wonder that being alone with our thoughts can feel intimidating. We've grown so used to looking outward for entertainment, validation, and distraction that looking inward feels unfamiliar. But solitude is not the absence of connection. It's the presence of a deeper connection to yourself. And that connection is where true peace is born. One of the most important things to understand about solitude is that it is intentional. Being alone because you have no choice can feel isolating, but choosing to be alone for the sake of your own mental and emotional health is empowering. When you make that choice, you're telling yourself, I'm worth this time. My mind matters. My peace matters. That shift in mindset is powerful because it reframes solitude from something to endure into something to embrace. It turns alone time into a gift rather than a punishment. Of course, solitude isn't always comfortable at first. Your mind may start racing, replaying conversations, worrying about the future, or dredging up old memories. That's completely normal. Most of us have never given ourselves the space to process our inner world without distraction. But here's the thing. Those moments of mental noise are actually the doorway to peace. You can't find stillness without first letting the storm pass. It's like the ocean. The waves on the surface might be rough, but if you dive deep enough, the water is calm. Solitude gives you the chance to dive deep. To make the most of solitude, it helps to create a ritual around it. This isn't about rigid rules. It's about signaling to your brain that it's time to slow down. Maybe you start your morning with 15 minutes of silence and a cup of tea. Maybe you take a walk without headphones and just let your mind wander. Maybe you write down 3 things you're grateful for at the end of each day. The activity matters less than the intention behind it. What's important is that you're carving out time to be fully present with yourself. Part of finding peace in solitude is learning to separate your voice from the voices of the world. Right now, without realizing it, you might be carrying the weight of other people's expectations. You might be trying to meet standards you didn't even set for yourself. Solitude helps you notice those things. It allows you to ask, is this really what I want, or is this what I've been told I should want? That clarity is priceless. Without it, you risk living a life designed by everyone but you. Another key element is removing distractions, especially digital ones. Your mind cannot rest if it's constantly interrupted by notifications, messages, and alerts. Even if you don't respond right away, every ping pulls your attention out of the present moment. One of the simplest but most transformative habits you can develop is giving yourself tech-free time during your solitude. Leave your phone in another room. Turn off the TV. Let the quiet be truly quiet. You might be surprised by how much calmer and more focused you feel when you're not plugged into the constant stream of information. As you spend more time in solitude, you begin to notice a shift. You start to feel lighter because you're no longer carrying so much mental clutter. You begin to think more clearly because your mind finally has the space to process without interruption. You feel more grounded because you've built a stronger connection to yourself. And the more you practice, the more you'll realize that this peace isn't fragile. It doesn't depend on anyone else's approval, mood, or actions. It's yours, created from within, and no one can take it from you. That's the magic of solitude. It doesn't just give you a break from the world. It teaches you how to move through the world with more calm, more confidence, and more clarity. And once you've experienced that kind of peace, you'll never see being alone the same way again. Peace and solitude is something you build, not something you stumble into. It's a skill, a discipline, and ultimately a gift you give yourself. Most of us are so used to constant interaction and activity that the thought of sitting quietly alone feels unnatural. We've wired our days around stimulation, music in the background, conversations buzzing, screens glowing, and because of that, we often mistake stillness for emptiness. But solitude isn't empty. It's full. It's full of your thoughts, your feelings, your dreams, and the kind of clarity you can't access in the middle of life's noise. The first step to truly embracing solitude is to see it as a choice, not a condition. If you tell yourself you're stuck being alone, it will feel like a punishment. But if you choose to step into solitude as a deliberate act of self-care, everything shifts. You're no longer a passive participant. You're actively creating a space for peace. This is where the transformation begins. It's not about being unavailable to others. It's about being fully available to yourself. When you allow yourself this time, the first thing you'll notice is how loud your mind actually is. Thoughts you've been avoiding may surface. Feelings you've pushed aside may demand your attention. At first, it can be uncomfortable. You might even feel restless or tempted to distract yourself. But here's where the real work is. Learning to sit with that discomfort instead of running from it. Because on the other side of that noise is a kind of stillness you've probably never felt before. It's not forced. It's not fake. It's a deep, natural calm that grows from knowing you can face yourself and be okay. One way to support this process is to create simple, grounding rituals during your alone time. You could start your day with mindful breathing, letting each inhale and exhale slow you down. You could journal without censoring yourself, letting your thoughts spill onto the page so your mind feels lighter. You could take slow walks in nature, paying attention to the sights, sounds, and sensations around you. These aren't just activities. They're ways of reconnecting with your senses, with the present moment, and with the truth that peace isn't somewhere out there, it's something you cultivate within. It's also important to remember that solitude doesn't mean isolation from the world forever. You're not withdrawing from life. You're preparing to show up more fully in it. When you step back and recharge, you bring a calmer, clearer, and more intentional version of yourself into your relationships, your work, and your decisions. The people around you benefit from your peace, even if they don't fully understand where it comes from. But to reach that point, you have to protect your solitude from unnecessary interruptions. That means setting boundaries, especially with technology. The moment you let your phone, email, or social media invade your quiet time, you've invited the noise back in. Even a quick glance at a notification can pull your mind away from the stillness you've been building. Give yourself permission to disconnect completely during these moments. You don't owe anyone instant access to you, and the world will keep turning while you take care of yourself. As you practice, you'll start to notice something powerful. You're not just finding peace in solitude, you're carrying that peace into the rest of your life. You become less reactive to stress because you know how to center yourself. You feel more grounded in your decisions because you've learned to hear your own voice clearly. You start valuing your own company, not as a fallback, but as a priority. And that changes everything. The truth is, solitude isn't about being alone forever. It's about building a relationship with yourself that's strong enough to handle anything life throws at you. Once you've experienced the peace that comes from that kind of self-connection, you'll never need to fear being alone again. Instead, you'll see solitude for what it truly is: a sanctuary, a reset button, and the most reliable source of peace you'll ever have.